Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning and welcome to One Mom on a Borough. And today we're going to have two moms talking, and what we're going to be talking about is you versus you. Who are you really? And what is a DBA, and how does it help us? Well, guess what? My co-host today, Colleen Divine. We call ourselves the Divine Powers. We've got some great things to share with you. A lot of talk has been going on about the DBA and unincorporated claiming assumed name. And so today that's what we're going to do. We're just going to chit-chat about what we know. And I'm going to bring in my dear lady, Colleen. Good morning.
Good morning, Rene. How are you?
Oh, my gosh, dear. I am so excited. This is going to be a great little discussion. As most people do in the morning, some get up and have coffee and look out the window. Well, we ladies in this country, American patriots, are getting up in the morning and having our coffee together from coast to coast, from your valley to my valley. We are definitely finding some great remedy and experience. And, you know, I got to, first of all, give you much thanks for bringing out, after Rob Ryder started the discussion of the doing business as legal fiction, claiming the assumed name. You picked up on it. And then I met you through another gentleman, Doug of Avalon, who I was contact. So it's been just this wonderful circle of people all across the United States of America, our lowercase, by the way, folks. Not the corporation, but the states, the people, the state citizens coming together. So, Colleen, go ahead and introduce yourself and just give a little rundown of the DBA, and let's talk about it.
You bet. It's one of my favorite topics because of the simplicity of it. Started out with Rob Ryder. When I first started understanding him and doing the redeeding of the deed, and I felt it was pretty successful. And his research was pretty incredible, still is. Just one of the best researchers. And he had done talk about claiming your name. And I fast-forwarded, didn't think too much about it. And then something hit me. I got to listen to this. And it was so out of the norm of understanding what you think life is and how you run your life that it taught you to open your mind about what it really, what's going on that you never gave it a thought before. And that's what started. In about 6 weeks, it took me of really grasping what this was to the point of understanding that the simplicity of it was what we did not know. We didn't really have to know because, as my husband has said, we started out with a wooden yoke, and it's gotten tighter and tighter and tighter to the point where we're in an iron yoke. And we don't even realize it because we're just so unaware. Now that we are becoming more and more aware when we're seeing things are just not right for any of us. Why is that? It's because...
Exactly. And, you know, we have a lot of friends that you and I have come together with. And when people want to know, well, what is this discussion? Well, doing business as, folks, this is about minding your own business and controlling your own business. And what's happened here, and we're not going to go into the whole discussion leading up to why Colleen and I talk about doing business as, but suffice it to say, if you go to my Facebook page, Rene Powers on Facebook, and you look at the notes section, you'll find a lot. There's one article I wrote in collaboration with Minnie that is titled Massive Exodus, Leaving the United States Incorporated, Fleeing to America. So, yes, massive exodus. So when people say, oh, you're giving up your United States citizenship, no, folks, that's not what we're doing. We're putting it in its proper perspective. So what this is about, and Colleen, you and I, after we were introduced, we started talking to a lot of other women. I know Josie, Southern Command, have been doing shows on the DBA now. Doing business as, you want to be unincorporated. Tell folks, you know, how powerful it is. This is how you separate. For those who know what public versus private is, this is where you separate yourself. This is where when people talk about walking into these injustice courts, as I call them, you're not walking into that on justice court as the living man or woman, if you don't recognize it, you're walking into that and you're going to be tagged as the representative that you're going to be pulling funds from. Explain that a little bit for the people, Colleen.
Okay. Well, again, back to that wooden yoke, we've always had that all capital name, that we didn't realize that it wasn't us, that it was something separate, a type of style, they call it, of utilizing that to be in the public. And we didn't realize that we had to separate ourselves from that we were not it. In the meantime, we just kept saying, oh, sure, I'm that person. Oh, sure, I'm that. And just take responsibility and pay all the debts to that person, and it would never end. And the debts got bigger and bigger and bigger until we realized, what is going on? This separation. Now, we always sign our names, simply first, middle, last, upper, lower, and didn't give it a thought. Didn't think that all capital was not us. We always thought it was. Who wouldn't? We never were harmed by it before until now. The harming of it is that any time you are point blank confronted with it in any aspect in day-to-day life, signing for something, signing for a ticket, anything you do, you're taking responsibility for that you never created in the first place. But you didn't realize that because it was so subtle. So subtle.
So subtle. And Boris put out that article, that blog that you had turned me on to this morning, where he was talking about the DBA, which is very exciting because now we're hearing all of these discussions and bringing the truth out. We've got political prisoners in jail right now across the United States, our states, and we know that this action taken prior to really does help us. And I'm going to read what Boris had in here, trade name remedy. And remember, this is all just suggestions, folks. We're just talking. And he was helping a friend, and he had to have a conversation with the friend's lawyer. And they came to the same conclusion. The attorney couldn't help him, right? And he said what he did come up with, something very simple. So here's a very simple remedy one should be able to use. And this is what we're talking about today. Register the trade name property, all caps, under a DBA with last, first, middle as the owner, and then use the affirmative defense of, I always say this wrong, acquittance and discharge from further obligation under contractual obligation with the party for whom the plaintiff is collecting the debt, with respect to the surrender of usufructuary interest and assignment of the reversion. And it goes on, and I put that link in the show so that people could go to that link. And he gives a tip here. He says, you may wish to notice the USCC for all your matters, as they are the registered agent for all corporations. This is a charter. Its purpose is essence of being. And so what that means is we're just claiming the name. And we know that when there's foreclosures, when there's tickets given for violations, that's all commerce. And that's going directly to the all caps name where they're collecting and accepting debt as the surety. So until we separate ourselves, simply separate ourselves in the DBA as the all caps name is our business, unincorporated, and explain how important the unincorporated is, Colleen, because you and I know after some experience with opening checking accounts and wanting to stay in the private, how important it is to, first of all, use a private bank, and second of all, how important it is to have that assumed name.
My favorite is Rob Ryder talking about business, and when this man was asking for some paperwork from the judge in a court, and the judge says, I'm just going to let you know, no, we're not going to do that. And he winks at him, and he says, after all, it's just business. Because there's two kinds of business. They had to simplify this, folks. They had to. One being that a corporation has rules and regulations that the United States Inc. tells it to do, and it controls you if you choose to be a corporation. Now, we didn't know that we were naturally put in there by using the all-cap name, by not having, by finally finding out through lots of mistakes, we realized the simplicity was to be able to say, no, I'm not incorporated. I have a choice, and where to physically put it in, to do the actual physical work of putting it in there in a recording, which, again, Rob speaks about court of record, the highest court there is, that the whole public can see. And I'm very lucky in Texas here because some of our counties have full reign, free to look at all the records, which is so cool because you could see everything. Most of them don't have.
That's called pro-transparency. That's where in when they start propagating about, and propagandizing against the American patriots, they say, oh, they're anti-government. It's the silliest thing you could hear, because the one thing about a patriot is they are so for government. They are just against. They're against the lack of transparency. So pro-transparency is what this is all about. And what you're talking about is key, because the fact that when you go to most courts or you go and ask most questions, they'll say that's not available, or you can't see it unless you physically come into the office. They literally, when I say they, I mean county recorders, a lot of times you can't see everything.
Or unless you have an attorney to explain, to keep you uninformed. And there's a reason for it, but it still is very sad for us, because we have been at this point, patriots, if you want to call it, I call it movement, of trying to figure out what it is, because they're not going to tell you. And we've been guessing, folks, guessing. That's all this is guessing. Guessing. And then, of course, the other half is how you act.
Let me share this. Boris says on this, as we know, there's many stories of people using the DBA, and there's nothing more powerful than such as Child Protective Services and how they take children. And people don't realize that they're taking the children because they can, because they hold title to them through that birth certificate. So you truly have to claim that name. And here's something he writes in, again, the same link I have here. I love that he wrote this so easy to read. FYI, he said, lady down in the Keys who was on the 12/30/2015 talk show I participated used the DBA in child custody to get her grandchildren back. 7 days it took. She shut down 3 divisions of CPS, and 27 people committed perjury and are now facing their own administrative tribunal. Another went into a court in Cali or Colorado and came in as trustee for the trust, the defendant, both individuals. The court proceeded to swear in all parties except the trustee and then promptly awarded the case to the defendant. Why? The maxim is simple. One cannot be a witness to their own cause. The DBA achieves the separation you are all seeking. Using it in conjunction with a living trust, now you're working with Moxie. Just have to know what it is you are doing and what contract you are seeking to enforce. So basically, the DBA is the simplest way to prove you are not the legal fiction. And for those who say, well, how do I do it? Well, as you and I know, Colleen, there's different states allow for unincorporated. But the one thing that we know is that as unincorporated, you have no boundaries. You can use that in any state. Can you talk to that a little bit? Speak to that.
It's about the difference between being controlled and being free, basically. Unincorporated is the choice they had to give us. Otherwise, it's complete enslavement. At 18 years old, I read this. It was so good. Lawyer couple actually wrote this one sentence, and I'll never forget it. All we had to do in the public, at 18, you are to apply for credit in your own name. That's it. That's it. Not get a job, not go to college, not go to get credit. You were to do this. Of course, we're not going to tell us how to do this because the separation, it was when you were ready to find this out. And the search that we have is realizing this is part of the evolving that we're doing, is realizing that we physically have to do something. The simplicity of it is putting a piece of paper in a county recorder, researching it, finding out what it is. It's basically your name, all capital, address, name, and address. After that, we have moved forward about better things to actually put in there with it, making like a notice of some kind, whatever, because being unincorporated, that is the big change. When I picked up on that with Rob and really put an emphasis on unincorporated, the choices that we have by this, that nobody can tell you what to do anymore.
Exactly. And, it comes down to, right, it comes down to live versus dead. And we are born, but there's a birth certificate. Those are the same thing. That's two separate, one's a living born unto the mother, right? And the other is a certificate of title issued by the state. And so this
Which
is
for us.
It's
for us to utilize, and we're allowed, the fairness, I guess, of it all is to be able to utilize it. But it's like what you and I talked about, running a business at your home. When a woman runs a business, it's running the household is a business. What we didn't understand was the business is a for-profit business. People didn't understand about property taxes. The reason there were is because there was a mortgage for profit. They were making interest off of it. Somebody was, so it's considered a business running a household. We didn't realize our names are running a business. Basically, That's all it is, and it's for profit. And then we find out, of course, that it goes up. They have utilized this birth certificate, which is an event, and put it online and put it on and sell it on Wall Street for the labor that we use. We couldn't possibly understand why this would be. It's because
and it's so simple.
It's because we were all supposed to put everything in a pot, in one big pot, and be able to give and take whatever it is we want and we need to have heaven on earth. Basically, heaven on earth. We're supposed to be able to do that. And we're creating that. But we didn't realize that we didn't have to pay to live, to put a roof over our heads. We didn't have to do that.
It's all taken care of for us, and yet what's happened is when people ask me about foreclosure and paying a mortgage, I always go to the simple explanation of I always ask, if you had $100,000 and there was a home for $100,000 that you wanted, and you had it. Now, we know where those listening will say lawful money, et cetera. Let's just go with it, folks.
Right.
We know about the lawful money. But the point is, you've got a savings account or a trust account that's got $100,000 in it. And you decide you're going to go buy that $100,000 home. So you take that, you have a zero balance at closing, off you go, believing you have the title to your property, right? Well, what people don't realize is when you're sitting at that table signing that what is now known as a lease agreement through patents and trademarks, Ken Doss, thank you very much for continuing that discussion and getting that going. But what happened is when you autograph that, you are committing a fraud without even knowing it, because they are accessing your all caps name. So how should you be signing that? You should not be signing it like Joe Smith. You should be signing it Joseph Smith, lowercase, as power of attorney or managing member CEO for the all caps name Joseph Smith. So any contractual obligation you've entered into prior to knowing this, they knew. They being the debt collectors, they being the banksters, they being anyone who contracted with you through attorneys or anything else, they knew.
The simplicity of that would be applying for credit. Yeah. And my husband went and applied for a loan within 3 days, found out it was approved. And and the title company knew this. Because how else could you be, quote, seized of the property? You had to own it before you could gift it away, because everything becomes about gifting. Because there, again, we never had to pay. Everything is prepaid. So when it was approved, even if it's not approved, it's approved.
Yeah, they're getting funds. They're getting funds on the backside. They're getting credit.
And I've got, personally, because of this, a list of everything that was paid for to bring it down to zero before I showed up to closing. Two separate. Everything's two separate. And I got to witness just seeing this, that is what actually does happen when you apply for credit. It doesn't say that. Credit.
Well, that's it. When we close, we're not closing on a mortgage. There is no mortgage. What they're doing is they're actually having us agree to pay our own. So it's like we're lending ourselves our own money and paying it back and giving them the benefit of saying, sure, you can take whatever you want. And when they say seized, they're talking about our estate. They're talking about our all caps estate. Because in that one section of the lease agreement, which they call a deed of trust, some states call it something different, but basically it's not a deed of trust. There is no trust, first of all. They've broken every trust. Right. They've lied through their teeth, so how they can call it a deed of trust is beyond me. But when they say that you have the right, that you are seized with the ability to encumber your estate and the property, that's key too. They're separated, estate and property.
And we're gifting it. We're gifting it to them without knowing about it, all because of ignorance.
And what's happened here is, as we now know, all these debt collectors, these third-party debt collectors are committing crimes against humanity because this is all filtering through laundering through straw men and straw women who are pretending to be investors, who are actually covering for other companies, because we know that the attorneys have admitted that their bar card is a license to commit theft. And that's if you listen to that 2020 segment, if you listen to that 2020 segment that came out last month where they had 16 attorneys that they interviewed where the man was pretending to come into the country with dirty money and needed help laundering it through, what did they do? They set up LLCs, incorporated LLCs to bury straw men behind so no one would be able to find who the true investors and who the true money makers and money launderers were. This is exactly what they've done to us, Colleen, in everything in our life since we were born. And when they say, what is your birthday? We weren't birthed. We were born. That birth date applies to the birth certificate and the all caps name. So it's as simple as this. Again, living or dead. You and I are living women. That birth certificate is a dead piece of paper.
So whoever wrote below on Boris's thing, he says this is all in one. It's simple. By putting that in there, it proves life, even though this is not, because we're signing it, first of all, that has to prove life. By doing this, all the other things does everything all at once. You still have had this birth certificate and had the Social Security, which is a good thing because it is just an accounting of your life. That's all it is, an accounting. And when you are allowed to do this, being born here, how lucky are we? We just weren't told.
Exactly. And, other foreign countries actually do what our country was supposed to do, which is they get monthly checks. They get all their obligations offset every couple of years. Mortgages paid, cars paid. You go to Dubai, holy moly. If you're driving brand new car, you're traveling in brand new cars. The police stand on the street corners to watch and observe. They don't drive down the street to, entrap you.
They're honorable is what they are.
They're honorable. And that's what's scary, Colleen, is once you realize how simple this DBA is, how simple it is. Just for us, I know you and I speak from experience. Nobody else has to do this, but you and I both agree. All of this other paperwork that people are doing, these trusts they're setting up with EIN numbers, you know, the DBA takes care of all that because it's an implied trust. That's it.
And express. When you say, this is mine. Right. I love when Josie brings up her daughters, okay?
Yes.
And how strong these women are. I said, I got to meet them. Because they talk about, hey, you're taking mine. It belongs to me. It belongs to me. So you give it back right now. I love that. They don't even have to know all of it, but be strong on who they are as young women. To be saying, this is mine, you took it, give it back. That's what we never knew. We never knew that.
And we never knew, which we never knew.
All we ever have really is our name. That's it. But that's all we need. That's all we need.
Well, and we never knew to keep it simple. We never knew that simply stating anything is all we have to do. When you go back in time, what was it? How did people operate? They gave notice. They did affidavits. And then they performed. And if someone didn't perform in an agreement, they then came together and said, look, you know, you were I gave you my cow. You were supposed to give me some hay back, and I didn't get my hay. Please deliver it. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to deliver it. Okay, well, then we're going to have to go in and go to the safety committee that's there to buffer, and we're going to talk to the safety committee, and we're going to sit down, and if we can't agree, then we're going to have some kind of jury of our peers.
And they call it contract law.
Contract law, and that's all we are in America. As Americans, it's all contract law. The thing is we've allowed this corporate structure to come in, which has convoluted everything that's supposed to be simple, or keep it simple, sweetie. And they've made it so that we've been dummied down, because after time, people forget. And as the elders die off and they no longer have the tales to tell, if we haven't listened, we too then are in that space. But now what we're finding is that people are listening. And the political
because basic contract, we don't even know, the definition of this. We have dumbed down to allowing agreement being called contract when a contract has to have two signatures. It has to.
Exactly.
And
it has to have
without
two parties.
this, we don't need to. And if people don't understand basic contract, the definition, that's what's causing us, and the intimidation and the mouth and the words. Right. Two signatures.
And if you're going to sign for a business entity, which is our all caps name, you cannot sign it just as the all caps name, because that is not you. You have to autograph it as the living man or woman, and as CEO doing business as, or as power of attorney for, because those who have done the IRS forms know how important that is. Well, Colleen, we're down to about 90 seconds. I really appreciate your chit-chat here with me, because this is what Colleen and I and Chris and I and Colleen and I and Roxanne and all of us come together, and Shelley and Heidi, we all just chit-chat and talk. And guess what? We moms are making sure that we're taking care of our families, and we're going to make sure that we call you by the right name. So keep it simple. Keep it simple, sweetie. Mind your own business. Claim the name. And let's get this country back in order. What do you say, Colleen?
I love it. The way it's meant to be. That's the way it should be. Talk about feeling free.
Exactly. And guess what? If freedom's illegal, better be an outlaw.
Yeah.
They won't let you live in your house. They won't let you live in your car. They won't let you live on the street. They won't let you camp in the park. They're taking liberties with your liberties. They're taking liberties with your liberties. call.